Hello people, July here again, and we are going to do something special today. I want to explain to you how the release of the Grand Exchange transformed RuneScape, and there is a lot to say about it, so this will be split up into 3 parts. The word transformation implies that we need to make a comparison, so in part 1 I will start by describing the situation of before the release of the Grand Exchange, which happened in November of 2007, so this video will be about the pre-Grand Exchange era. By many, the Grand Exchange is considered something that should logically be part of RuneScape. For them, it's hard to imagine what the game would be like without the Grand Exchange. Where else would you get your resources from to train all the skills? However, those of you who created a RuneScape account in 2007 or earlier will know that it is perfectly possible to play RuneScape without the presence of the Grand Exchange. If you started playing the game in 2008 or later, however, then you might wonder what it all used to be like before the Grand Exchange existed, so let's have a look at that. A less important fact to begin with is that the Grand Exchange replaced an already existing place, so it wasn't a newly added location per se. The Outlaw Camp and quite a big low density forest could initially be found where the Grand Exchange is right now, and that area would stretch all the way from Edgeville to Varrock Palace, the latter of which was completely surrounded by walls, although it did have a shortcut at that time. A player in Edgeville who couldn't use the shortcut would as alternative have to walk all the way around through the barbarian village. Okay, so that's all about the geography. Now moving on to the parts that really matter. The absence of the Grand Exchange had implications for the community. One question that you might be inclined to ask is, how did players know how much an item was supposed to cost? And that is a good question. You see, the absence of the Grand Exchange obviously also meant that the Grand Exchange item database on the website didn't exist. If you were a low-level or medium-level player who didn't know much about the game at that time, then you were lost. You had to rely on your own intuition and on your own judgment, or you could try to ask a friend to see what the right price for an item was. Alternatively, you could go to the trading locations in Worlds 1 and 2. These 2 worlds are the official worlds for trading, but World 1 used to be for free players and World 2 for members. Falador and later Varrock used to be packed with hundreds of players spamming their trade offer. If you didn't know the right price, you could just have a look there and see for how much the item was being bought or sold. The more experienced players, however, would also use the RuneScape forums, which had a very active marketplace. In fact, the marketplace of the forums might have been what made the forums so popular, but I will get back to that later in this video. In addition to that, smaller trading communities could be found on other websites as well, mostly clan sites, so that's how you could find out the right price. Now, the issue with not knowing the right price is that scammers could easily do their thing, so what you would see happen every now and then is a player approaching a low level or medium level player, with the first player offering to buy, for example, their rune scimitar for a price that was much lower than the actual market value. And that really was a problem because there was no objective price if you weren't aware of a website or forum board that was dedicated to trading. So in that sense, the release of the Grand Exchange was definitely positive because it is impossible to get scammed by using the Grand Exchange. Then something else that's important to point out is that the role of friends changed when the Grand Exchange was released at the end of 2007. Before its release, a person on your friends list could be considered a potential buyer or seller for anything you wanted to buy or sell before turning to the forums or to the public in-game trading locations, which were Falador and Varrock at that time. In other words, and this might be hard to imagine today, but at that time friends served a functional purpose as well. Considering how annoying it could be to buy items before the release of the Grand Exchange, especially in large quantities, it was clever to be friends with a lot of people, not only to expand your market, to put it like that, but also to create some sort of network. For example, you could be friends with someone from a rune crafting business just in case you ever decide to start trading magic and need a lot of runes. Back in the day, it was a smart move to have the right connections and it could make scaling more convenient. With the release of the Grand Exchange, however, the need for that kind of friend completely disappeared. Okay, let's talk about the forums again now. Before 2007, many players would turn to the forums for buying and selling items. This means that the market section of the forums would often be flooded with threads as players attempted to find a good deal. Now, what do you do while waiting for someone to post? You browse, you have a look at other forums, you read other threads, etc. In this way, the market forum category kind of ensured that there would be activity everywhere else on the forums. the release of the Grand Exchange eliminated the need for the market forum category to a big extent, so a consequent significant decrease in forum use was logical and expected. And in the years after that, the use of the forums did indeed decrease, although I should mention here that the rise of social media also played a role in that, but that actually came a little later, when the new CEO of Jagex, which was Mark Gerhardt at that time, decided to focus more on interacting with the community as one of his main goals. And that's an interesting fact to end this first video with. So this was part 1, which was mainly about the pre-Grand Exchange era to explain how trading worked and how other relevant community aspects were different in the absence of the Grand Exchange. So if you liked part 1, make sure to subscribe or to follow me on my social media pages so that you won't miss part 2. Just to remind you, this was part 1 of 3 parts in total. I hope that you enjoyed it. I am July and I hope that you will come back for more.